many of us believe that? Jesus changes everything. You know, it really is. I mean, that sounds like such a simple, almost cliche type statement, but it really is true. And when we truly embrace that and we understand the enormity of just those couple of words, Jesus changes everything, it really does make a difference. So again, we're going to continue in our teaching series. I almost said Jesus changes everything. Getting personal with Jesus. And we're going to be looking at the story of Mary Magdalene today from the Gospel of John. And this story, as I was reading it and preparing it this week, it really just, there's some really, really cool stuff here. And so I hope that you can see out of it what the Lord has placed in my heart. So again, we turn to John chapter 20. And we begin in verse 11 looking at this. To set the stage, to kind of see where we are, the resurrection has taken place. That's there, right? We don't sound right. There's some kind of echo or something here. I don't want to mess up our thing, but it just don't sound right. Is it just me, or does it sound funny out there too? Does it sound right? Does everybody sound okay? Maybe it's just me. I got another year older this past week. Maybe my ears aren't working, right? So anyhow, the resurrection has taken place. And so this enormous event has happened. The tomb is empty. So everything that we're talking about, we want to paint a picture, right? And so we're looking at this picture. Mary is standing outside of this. The tomb is empty. The linen wrapping that is laying there, and it's just laying there. Peter and the others have inspected it. Jesus is gone. He's not there. He's not there. And so Mary is standing outside of this tomb, and we find her, it says, crying. But the question we have to ask is, why? Why is she crying? Emotions, and I think we can all agree with this, emotions can be hard to contain. Whether it's grief, or sorrow, or brokenness, or despair, or disappointment, or even anger. Sometimes they are very, very hard to manage if we're honest, because they're real. They're real, and we're real, and we hurt, and we get upset, and all these different things that happen. And so we read here that she looked inside once again. So we said she stood outside, she's crying, but as she was crying, she stooped to look into the tomb. So she looks inside one more time. Now, we can look at that a couple of ways, but number one was she just had to make sure. Is this really, is he really not in there? Is he really gone? Again, this was another level of despair. This was another level of grief and sadness. We see here, as she looked in, she saw two angels sitting there. Now think about that for a minute. You're in the midst of all these emotions and feelings and all this stuff, and you're already kind of beside yourself. Jesus is not in there, which is the only thing she was looking for. And she looks at it, and now there's two angels there. It says one at each end, where there would have been a head, where there would have been his feet. But they had a message for her. They had a message for her. They had a message of compassion. Again, we see Mary's crying mentioned as they looked at her, and they said, "Woman, why are you crying?" Now again, they weren't being insensitive. They weren't being sarcastic. They were asking her, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" But I think we can also find within this, they're also a little puzzled. Like, why are you crying? You know what's happened because he told you what was going to happen. So why are you crying? Again, not being insensitive, but she, along with the disciples, they'd been so overwhelmed at what had taken place, what they had literally witnessed, what they had seen. And so she answered them, because they've taken away my Lord. They've taken him away. Again, she's referring to Jesus' body. And then she says, and I don't know where they've put him. We go back to emotions in this moment. The sense of hopelessness in her words, the sense of despair, again, getting personal with Jesus. Why had this impacted her so much? We have to go back to the relationship. The encounter that she had had with Jesus had affected her deeply. Jesus saved her life. He delivered her from a very dark place. She was not the same person now because of Jesus. He had completely restored her life. He had set her free. And now her mindset, her thought process is, He's gone. What now? That was all I had. That was my refuge. That was my strength. That was everything. And now He's gone. Who do I turn to now? That was where she was at. That was where her tears were welling up from. That was where her emotions were leading her. And again, if we're totally honest, being fully transparent in everything at this moment, all of us have said those words. What now? Where do I turn to now? Because there's a moment that sometimes overtakes us when we feel hopeless, when we feel despair. It just overcomes us because situations happen. They happen. Life is real. And so we have to turn back to the angels, and they see her tears. They see her broken heart. But they know what Jesus told her. They know what Jesus told her. And all of those in his circles, he told them what was going to happen, that on the third day he would rise. But just as we've been finding in our study on Wednesday night, which if you're missing that, you're really missing something great. We're having phenomenal conversations on Wednesday night, so I encourage you to be a part of that. We're learning most of those that he told, in fact, all of those that he told, they didn't listen. They didn't get it. They heard the must be handed over, must be killed. They heard all that part, but they never heard the third day I'll be back. They missed that completely. Why? Emotions. Emotions overrode their heart. I can't believe that this is going to happen. I mean, you're the answer. You're the one we've been looking for. This is Mary here. The hopelessness is broken. Where do I turn to now? They either didn't get it, they either didn't believe it, or they forgot it during all the trauma. Have you ever had one of those moments where somebody did tell you something, but then something completely distracted you and you forgot what was said? And then later you're like, oh man, they did tell me that. We've all had those moments. The disciples would later have that later on. They're like, oh, he did say that. But it wouldn't be until after the fact. So here we find Mary. She's crying. I can almost envision this scene. I almost wish we had the technological ability to paint pictures while we're talking. That technology's out there, but it only cost $1 million. But we'll work on that later. But seriously, when we're painting this picture, we can think about this. She said, and I don't know where they've put him. I don't know where he's at. She's about to walk away. We can see that clearly through her words. We can see that clearly because they've taken him away, and I don't know where they put him. And having said this, verse 14, she turned around. Okay, so why is she turning around? She's going to walk out. It's done. I mean, why am I going to continue to stand here? This feeling of defeat, it's a very easy place to get because, well, the answer I was looking for is not here. It's not going to happen. It's kind of over, so let me walk away and see if I can process this. She turned around, never stopping to think. Now, this is the next part I want you to think about for a minute. She turns around to walk away, not stopping to think, wait a minute, I just talked to 2 angels. That should have maybe been like a flag, right? Saying, wait a minute, something might have happened in there that maybe I should go and think about that but that didn't happen. That didn't happen. That is the power of emotion. That is the power of brokenness and despair, is sometimes you can't see it and it's right in front of you. And we're going to see that happen even more as this story begins to unfold because, again, you'd think that would have been a pretty good sign that something was going on, right? But we read, she turned around and she saw Jesus standing there. But it tells us in verse 14, she didn't know it was Jesus. So the very one she's looking for, the very one that she thinks is gone, the very one that she's seeking after, because she said, I don't know where they put him. So that's a statement of saying, I don't know where you put him, but I sure wish I knew. I sure wish I knew, because I want to go get him. Later she would tell who she thinks is the gardener. If you just tell him, I'll go get him. So that's the one she's looking for. That's the answers. That's where all her hope is at. And she can't see him. And he's standing right in front of her. And he asked her, he said, why are you crying? This was a show of concern, but it was also puzzled, just as the angels, because Jesus is saying, but I told you what was going to happen. Why are you crying? Who are you looking for? Who are you seeking after? Who are you looking for? This was a moment. The reason he's asking this was a moment to cause her to focus. Let's bring it back down. Let's stop for just a minute. Let's process the situation. We've all had to go through this at some point in time because, again, the blindness of grief is a real thing. You cannot see through it. I've known people that have stayed in that blind for years. Not just moments, for years, because they will not see through it. They find themselves in a place, I can't see through it because I've lost all hope. I've lost all reason. It's all gone. I can't see through it. It can be overwhelming. And again, we're talking about this today because it's real. We see so much going on around us today, friends. And this message, this story really, really addresses it in such a powerful way. And I didn't even realize this until I began to study what this story is trying to tell us. And so even times when the answer is near, even times when the answer is available or it's right in front of us, you can't see it. We've struggled with that in reality. And sometimes it takes a little bit to get the aha moment. Sometimes it takes a little bit to get to realize, wait a minute, I've had the answer sitting in front of me the whole time. I've had the answer being right here by me the whole time. Mary is sad. Mary is broken. The grief, well, it is far more than she thinks she can bear. You ever felt that way? Let's just be real. Sometimes it absolutely feels that way. The very Jesus that she is seeking, the very one she is seeking, he's standing right there, and she can't see him. She cannot see him. Had he physically changed? Was there anything different? Was he hiding? Did he have a mask on? No. He was still the same Jesus. He was still the same Jesus. Everything was still the same, except for her. Except for where her heart was at that moment. You see, friends, we see so many people today struggling with life. And we find every possible distraction being thrown at us. You know, the scripture talks about fiery darts from the enemy and the importance of having on our full armor to protect ourselves from that. There's a lot of people that have never put that on. There's a lot of people that are walking around bare with no protection on at all. You know, and all these darts are coming in every possible way. And the number one way to get us off track is here. Because ultimately, if we begin to dwell on it long enough, it will affect our hearts, which is the center of our emotion. And then we don't think clear at all. And then we just kind of find ourselves walking in circles. And we don't get anywhere. We don't accomplish anything. The struggle is real. And so we find in this story, and it paints that picture. Here's Mary in great despair, hopeless, broken. All these different things are happening. And here's the truth, friends. We hear this all the time, and it's so easy to say where you're on the outside of that. But to tell someone or to deal with a situation, I'll just snap out of it and get over. That doesn't work. That's not real. That's the other side of emotion, of anger, because I don't understand what you're dealing with. Okay? We're not justifying anything, and we're not oversimplifying anything, but this is real. And we understand it through this story. And it paints such a beautiful picture that maybe we didn't see before. That's why we're doing this series, is because we look at this through the eyes of real people that dealt with real situations that speak into our lives right now. And that's what's so beautiful about the Bible, is it continues to grow with us. And so we see here Jesus is talking to her, the very one she's looking for. He's talking to her. And she responded to his question, why are you crying? And she spoke to the very one that she is seeking. But at this moment, it tells us she thinks that maybe he's the gardener. Maybe he's the groundskeeper. He's the guy that keeps the graves clean and, rakes up the leaves or cuts the grass or whatever. And she said, "Sir," and this was sincere. She said, "Sir, if you've carried him away, if you've done something, if you moved, just tell me where he's at, and I'll go get him. Just tell me where the body's at, and I'll go take care of it." So what does that tell us? She thinks he's still gone. And gone in the sense she thinks he's still dead. Okay, this whole thing is not processed. This whole thing is not resonated with where her mindset is at this moment because of the overwhelming grief she was dealing with. She could not see it. She could not process it. All the hope that she had had, all the joy that she had had, it's gone. It's over. The blindness of grief, we have to understand this, friends. The blindness of grief, it robs us of all vision. It does not allow you to see. And it is, again, in no way looking in any wrong way for a person that doesn't have sight, but it's just as dark. It's just as blind for one that can't see at all. You know, one that physically has that inability. Because the ability to see forward requires us to have vision. Okay? And that vision, the scripture says that if we don't have vision, you will perish. That vision is not the physical ability to see, it's the willingness to see. And if we can't see it because we're unwilling, we don't go anywhere. And if we don't go anywhere, we don't accomplish anything. And the main thing as believers that we don't accomplish is we never tell anybody about the joy of knowing Jesus. And there is no one that loves that more than the enemy himself. So he don't care if you're here this morning. He absolutely don't care. He don't care if we're here till 5 o'clock today. That part don't matter as long as you don't go out there and tell anybody else. See, he wants you to be blinded to, oh, it's too hard, life's too hard, this is costs too much, this is too difficult. All the reasons that we come up with, all the things that blind us to the vision that's been put in front of us. But then we find in this story, and this is what changes in our life, this is the pivotal moment, and I said this in our scripture reading earlier. This is the moment that changes everything in this story as we get about, pretty much halfway through it or getting closer to our end. Jesus says in verse 16, Jesus said to her, Mary. One word. But why is that important? He called her by her name. He called her by her name. Changed everything. We talked about that last week with Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus called Jesus by name, right? Okay, so now we find Jesus calling Mary by name. He broke through her brokenness. So here's the question. Are you in a battle? Maybe you're in a battle in your life. Maybe there's something you're wrestling. It's a family thing, a health thing. It could be whatever. It doesn't matter. The enemy wants to disrupt our lives. That's a fact. Okay, that is a fact. And the greatest way to do that is on the emotional front. Because the emotions cause us to quit. Emotions cause us to shut down. Because then I give up. And if I give up, I'm no longer of service. If I go sit in the corner, I don't bother anybody. If I go hide in the closet and shut the door, I'm off the field. I don't play anymore. I don't pose a threat. I can't possibly score the winning run. I can't do it because I'm no longer playing. That's what he wants. And the greatest way to do that is emotionally. The greatest way. Because injuries heal. Broken legs heal. And all this other. But broken hearts are a little bit different. Broken spirits are a little bit different. And that's where the attack is at today, now more than ever. And we see this painted out in this beautiful story. But there was one thing that changed. Jesus called her by name. Jesus called her by name. I've never personally in my life, and again, I've been around for a while, I've never seen division like it is right now in our world. And obviously we see it at the forefront here in our country. It is unbelievable. It is literally the line drawn in the sand, and which side are you going to pick? It is just that ugly. It is that divisive. It is awful. And the things that are said about people in order to gain advantage or to gain positions are shameful. Because the sad part about it is we're living in a time where it doesn't have to be true. You can just make it up. There was stuff put on national television this week about people. And they said, we have no source for this. It was just something we were told. But it was broadcast around the world. You can't do that, or you shouldn't do that. But that's the world that we're in today. Because what does that do? That stops you from playing. That gets you on defense. Now I got to defend myself against something I can't defend. That's the world that we live in. We see it happening right before us. The overwhelming nature of life. It is a real, true thing. And for many people, it just seems too hard. And many are ready to walk away. And sadly, as we see the suicide rate increasing, many have. Many have. Many have given up. But I want you to hear this to me this morning. I want you to hear me. Maybe you're in that place. Maybe someone listening is in that place. I'm ready to walk away. I'm ready to say the heck with everything. This is just too hard. It's just not worth it. In that moment, I want you to listen, because he will call your name. He will call your name. And the question is, will you hear him? Will you listen to him? Do you seek him? See, Mary was looking for Jesus. She said, if you'll just tell me where he's at, I want to go find him. I want to go get him. Of course, she was thinking she was going to recover the body, but she was looking for him. She's stooping down and looking in the tomb. She wants him to be there so bad. She's looking for him. She's seeking after him. And Scripture says if we seek, we'll do what? We'll find. Okay, Jesus called her by name. He said, Mary. Then we read, turning around. What does that give us reference to again? She was walking away. She was walking away. She had given up. I can't find him. He's not in there. Still not realizing the immense nature of this situation. The angels are there. I'm talking to this person that just suddenly appeared because I didn't see him before. All these different pieces of the puzzle are right in front of her, but it's still not registering because she's not thinking. But it tells us he called her by name. And she turned around. And as she turned around, joy instantly returned. As she turned around, she said Rabboni, which means teacher, as if to say, it's you. It's really you. You're here. Her joy was restored. Her excitement was restored. Her life came back. We can feel this joy. We can picture her smile. We can hear her heart rapidly beating as this immense and just exciting moment happened. In other words, there was a reason to live again. There was a reason to live again. I want you to hear me this morning, friends. There's a reason to keep living. I don't know what you're fighting. You don't know what I'm fighting. We all have a battle. Okay? We all have one. And everybody's is different. Some are similar, but everybody's is different. Why? Because we all handle it differently. Some of us stand outside the tomb and cry. Some of us stay in the house and cry. Some of us drive too fast. Some of us get mad. Some of us stomp. Some of us have a fit. Okay, we all handle it differently. And that's not to cast judgment on anybody's way of handling it, because you be you. That's important. God knows your heart. But hear him when he calls you by name. Hear him when he calls you by name, because what he's saying is, hey, we can fix this. You can't, because you're depending only on you. And the longer you depend more on you, that's going to be problematic, okay? Because you're going to continue to go down ways that are not only going to not help you, but it's going to take you further away from me. It's like the old saying, and I've said this before, ships, they do not sink because of the water they're in. They sink because of the water they are allowed on, okay? What are we allowing in that is sinking our ship? I can't do it. It's too hard. They don't like me. All these different things that we try to do to try to find answers, when all we need to hear is Jesus calling our name. That's the answer. And that's what we find in this beautiful story. There's a reason to keep going. Now, that's at the same time to tell you that while there's a reason to keep going, every day is not going to be rainbows and sunshine. Okay? There's still going to be some issues along the way. You've heard me say over the years that we've been together now, you're going to have a stub your toe moment every now and then. It's going to happen, okay? There's going to be a time when you come out the door and the tire's flat on the car, okay? That's going to happen. There's going to be a time you go to work and there's going to be something you don't like. Somebody's going to say something you don't like, or somebody's not going to like what you say, or whatever. It's going to happen. That's life. You know, if you got children, that's life. There's going to be days that are better. There's going to be days that aren't worth a hoot. Okay? That's just true. Sometimes they're going to cry all night and you're not going to sleep. All right? You know, sometimes they're going to make you cry all night and you're not going to sleep. That's real. Okay, that's real. So every day is not going to be rainbows and sunshine. However, let me just share this with you. And this is nothing new. This is no revelation. But if you got up this morning, you've got a purpose. If you are drawing air in your lungs right now, you've got a purpose. I don't know what it is, but God does. Will you let him call your name? There was a lady, I remember ministering to this lady years ago. She was 89 years old, nursing home, wheelchair bound, had a multitude of health problems. But I would go and I would get a chance to go and visit with her as often as I could. And she was the most joyful person to be around, to even be in her condition. She just always had this wonderful smile, you know. And everybody on the wing of that nursing home would come by her room to get a little word of encouragement. Now, again, she's physically completely handicapped. She can't do anything. And she would talk about that sometimes. And she said to me one day, she said, Pastor, I just don't understand. What good am I? She said, I can't do anything. I can't teach a class anymore. I can't do this anymore. I said, you're a point of joy for everybody in this whole place. They all come to see you when they're not feeling good. That's your purpose. That's your call. God made you a point of light. We all have a purpose, friends, each and every single one of us. The story of Mary, it gives us the reality of the power of emotion, but it also gives us the answer. It gives us the answer. Jesus, our risen Savior. That's the answer. See, her life was in total upheaval. It was turned upside down completely. Until that one moment, he called her name. Changed everything. Jesus calls your name today, it'll change your life. Just like that little video. Jesus changes everything. That is a fact. So we see that she's excited, man. She's like, oh, boy. I mean, she turned around and she saw him. But Jesus said, don't cling to me. She had obviously grabbed him. Not a question about that, right? There was this big, huge hug because that's what she'd been looking for, and she didn't want to let go. She didn't want him to leave again. I finally got what I needed. It's back. I was missing it so bad, and I don't want it to ever go away again. I always want it to be there. Jesus said, I will always be there. I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. I'll be with you even until the ends of the age. That's how he ends the Great Commission for those that are thinking, well, that's too hard. How am I going to tell everybody? He said, I'll be with you the whole time. So we see here, he told her, don't do that. Don't hold on to me. Don't cling to me. Now, this was not being shunned. This was not being rude, but rather time is pressing. What was he telling her? He was telling her, I've got an assignment for you. I've got something I need you to do. And I'm back. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm always yours, but I need you to do something for me. I need you to go forth and go and see my brothers before I ascend to the Father. Before I ascend to the Father, go to my brothers and tell them that I am. Now, that's not a maybe. That's a guarantee. He says, I am ascending to my Father and to your Father and to my God and to your God. Now, in that moment, did she fully grasp the message? No. Because what he was telling her is, I'm getting ready to go again. She didn't get that part. She didn't get that part at all, right? But why? Emotions. Now joy has overtaken. How much time does joy sometimes not cause us to think either? Man, this is exciting. I got a brand new car. This is exciting. Oh man, I got payments. We don't think about it in the moment, right? It gets exciting because we get overwhelmed by joy, right? And so we see here that's where she was at. So she got the assignment. He said, go tell them I'm ascending back to God. Most likely she didn't hear that part at that moment because Jesus was alive. Jesus was alive. Her hope was restored. And that was at the forefront of her thoughts at that moment. I want you to hear that today. Jesus is alive. Your hope can be restored if you place your hope in him. You can have this because that same Jesus that gave Mary hope on that moment, well, he's alive right now. He's alive right now. And he promised to return one day. And I believe that with all my heart, that it will be. It will be. And that's so clear as he's been promised. And he did ascend back to the Father. But he's got a message, just as he had for Mary, he's got a message for you and I. Go tell. Go tell. That's our assignment. That's it. Okay? Well, Pastor, that sounds really easy, but it's so hard to do. Why? Because we let everything else get in the way. I got to do this, I got to do that, and we get a schedule. We get a schedule, longer than the president. I mean, I seen a fellow the other day with 3 cell phones. I mean, he's a busy guy, right? I mean, we see all this, and we convince ourselves of this stuff all the time. But Jesus said to her, go tell. That's what he wants us to do. That's our assignment. That's our assignment. And here's the thing. Go tell. Do we always need words? No. No. Because when it's real, everybody knows. When your joy is real, everybody knows. You don't have to say a word. You can't wipe that smile off your face. When your brokenness is real, you don't have to say anything because everybody knows. See, the Bible uses the fancy word countenance. When you walk in, you just know. Everybody can look at you. Your physical makeup, your look, your demeanor, everything, whether you're grumpy looking or mad looking or sad looking or maybe you got a limp, you can just tell they're not having a good day. Oh man, they're on top of the world. It's there. That's real. So when it's real, everybody knows. When your heart is filled with Jesus, it just shows. It's just there. And we read as he told her this. He said, since I have not yet ascended to the Father, but go to my brothers and tell them that I am ascending to my Father, my God, your God. Mary Magdalene, we see in verse 18, went. Mary went. What does that mean? She listened. She heard the call, and she went. So here's the question to all of us. Will you? Will you go? Because I believe this with all my heart. The message of Jesus is needed now more than we've ever known, at least in our history. I mean, Jesus has always been needed, don't get me wrong. But in this modern age of nonstop emotional attacks, we need this truth now as much as we've ever needed it, if not more. Because even within the church circle, we see brokenness because we've got such a division and an argument over who's right and who's this and who's that and who teaches this and who messed up. Let's get back to the central message, friends. You see, when we get off of our foundation, guess what happens? The house falls down. And we're teetering right now like we've never even imagined. And one good strong wind, that's going to be in trouble. Jesus said, if you build your house on the sand, when the winds come and the rains come, it will fall, and mighty will its fall be. But you build your house on the rock, it doesn't matter what comes, it'll stay firm. That's why we do what we do. That's why I teach in the manner that I teach, because that has to be our focus. We can get off down every rabbit trail that there is, and we can discuss this and that, and we can get into all the big words and all the theologies, and all. We get away from Jesus, none of that matters. Because then we lose focus. Then we start getting into the arguments over this and that. And then who wins? Nobody. The enemy. Because now I've got a body that is no longer functioning. Now I've got a body that's been disabled and put over in the corner, and they're not doing anything. Jesus told Mary, go tell. That's our job. That's what we've been asked to do. So will you go? Will you go? Mary said, when she ran in to announce to the disciples in verse 18, she said, I have seen the Lord. Man, I love that, because that personal encounter with Jesus changed her life. Let me tell you something today. It'll change your life too. It'll change your life forever. That doesn't mean you'll be exempt, that you'll never have another mess up in life or never another headache. No, that don't mean that at all. But you'll know you're not alone. And when you've seen the Lord, you will never be the same. Ever. Ever be the same. Because once you've seen it and you know it, it's just different. It's just different. She told them what Jesus said to her, that he was going to ascend back to the Father, right? And regardless of what she did or didn't understand about that, and probably very, very little, her statement, I have seen the Lord, was all the credibility she needed, because when it's real, everybody can see it. It's not a religious thing. It's not a momentary thing. It's seen in your eyes. See, we can have conversations with each other and you can know whether somebody's listening to you or not. but you can also know whether they mean what they're saying or not. Okay? A lot of times people are really good actors. They may not be on the screen, okay? And they might not be, have a Walk of Fame star in California, but they're putting on a show. They don't mean a word they say because it's all part of the gimmick, But we're not talking about playing characters here. We're not talking about putting on a costume or a suit or a mask. We're talking about your heart, what is real. Mary said, I've seen the Lord. You can't even say those words without smiling. I have seen the Lord. Again, no matter what was understood at that moment, here's my challenge to us. May our walk, when we walk out of these doors, may our walk let people know we've seen the Lord. We've seen the Lord. And may we tell them of his great love. May we tell them of his sacrifice and the hope that he brings to everyone who will receive what he offers, to all that it is given, to all who will say yes can have it. We got a couple more stories left in this powerful series that I hope is being a blessing. And Lord willing, we'll keep getting personal with Jesus next week. I want to thank you so much for being here. And if you enjoy what we're trying to build here, go tell somebody. Let somebody know, hey, you know what? There's something unique happening over there at 2465 Gillis Hill Road. I really can't explain it, There's a big bald-headed guy that gets all excited up there, but hey, go find out what that's all about. Go listen, because I'm telling you, there's something different. It's not like anything you'll find, and I don't say that I'm not putting myself on no pedestal at all. But you won't find this many places that will take time to do what we're doing and look at what God is showing us. Let somebody know, invite a friend, bring a neighbor, because I absolutely believe, as we always say, our best days are ahead of us. I have seen the Lord. Let that change your tears to joy. Amen. Our team will come.